Well, so the way we met was back in 2006. The guys who started Firewire were mostly, the money was from guys that used to work for Billabong, and Nev Hyman, who was a shaper out of Australia, is a shaper out of Australia. They were all together and they wanted to start this big, huge, surfboard company. And they were all really excited, and they were trying to, like I was saying before, is they were trying to recruit Mark Price from Reef. He was the vice president of marketing at the time. And I was right across at the ASR in San Diego convention center trade show, across from Reef, because my buddy was helping me with my booth. This is right after Clark collapsed and everything like that. So I was showing my EPS and my carbon at the trade show. And then those guys were like, hey, what's this? You already know about epoxy. And yeah. And I said, yeah, I got a shaping machine. And they just said, hey, can we come see your shop? And so 2 days later, we all met at my shop. And from there, that was January, and we were full on producing boards by March of that same year. I had gone to Australia, maybe it was April, but I'd gone to Australia and met with the guys. Bert Berger was the guy who came up with the step-by-step process of how to build the wooden rails with the sandwich construction it was all manual labor. It was very primitive procedures. They've since automated a lot of things and really done some cool things with the CNC machines and vacuum bagging. But back then it was a fair bit of vacuum bagging, but a lot of step-by-step with wood rails. It was really, really hard to shape.
Yeah.
But anyway, then I stayed on as an employee. I was in charge at first of the U.S. manufacturing at my shop. Then we moved over into Southeast San Diego. And then they brought in some heavy guns of guys who really knew how to do manufacturing at larger scale. And then it evolved to closing down the Australian and U.S. manufacturing, and went 100% into Thailand, except for a little like experimental R&D shop in Australia. And I was still doing some R&D in the San Diego shop. So that was kind of conflicting because I didn't really know that was going to happen. But I went out there, and I was like, the factory was insane. So it was really cool getting to know those people. And then after that, I just couldn't, I wanted to own my own business since I was a kid. I wanted to be on my own. I didn't want to have a boss. I wasn't afraid of working really hard. I did that. It's actually at P.D. Johnson and Jack Johnson's parents' house. My dad was friends with their dad.
No way. As
So
like a lifeguard?
Petey was lifeguarding at the time. Yeah. He actually, my first Catalina, Petey, I got to know him then in 92. He was at USC, and he stayed out in California and raced the Catalina, and got third. And so we became friends then. And so I went to the North Shore and visited them at their house. And Kelly was, I think he was staying in Jack's room at the time. He had just won his fourth world title. I think I first went out there and met him around 95 or 6. And, it was casual. We were just sitting on the porch watching the waves. But yeah, that was the first time I met Kelly. I think that was the first time I met him, was out there at their house. Just, we'd do dishes together and clean up. The Johnsons were like, they kept the community of all these surfers. They had a wall with everyone's height on it, and
Really?
it was just every surfer, like you'd seen in the magazines, was on that wall. It was amazing. So it was really fun.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What a relic. I wonder if it's still there.
I bet it is. Patty's still in the house. So
Good. Yeah. You can never get rid of that.
And I would say on all of what you just said, he also wants to hear what you think. He goes, well, but what do you think? Like I made him a couple of S bosses and a couple of FRKs. He goes, well, what did you think of your board? And one time I hadn't made I'm much taller. And so the rocker situation I'm not much taller, but I'm in that next height up. And so, and I've learned working with him and making boards that I make for him work for me and guys my size. There's quite a bit of change that needs to go on. You can't rely on scaling on the computer. So he's always asking that. And, you're spot on. Like he's talked a lot about in his interviews about how he would dream up of where he would want to be on a wave and doing what turn and how do I get the board to fit there and all those kinds of really fine detail. And he has a really good imagination on what he thinks the board needs to have in order to get there as a creative surfer. Not only that, but he'll also listen to Al or, you know, whatever shaper he's working with and me at the time. When I feel he'll go, but what do you think too? It's collaborative. It's not like, you know, hey, I'm Kelly and I know everything, so I got it. Just do this.
Yeah.
It's not like that at all. He's very, very receptive to alternative ideas, as you know, his work with Tomo would show. He's got those all kinds of so the sci-fi, the channel bottoms, and different things like that. He's very open-minded and gracious with his time when he's meeting with shapers, it seems like, and sure was with me. I very grateful for that feedback. So the dividends is a lot. And just as a person, you know, I feel like, yeah, he's just a very he's an old soul in a lot of ways, and he's just also a crazy grom who's super competitive. It's a dynamic person. The riders, most of the ones I mentioned, are super interested in the alternative materials too, or else it wouldn't work as a relationship. It wouldn't be authentic and true. So a lot of the times it's epoxy with EPS and a high density stringer. And a lot of times it's different variations of wood stringers or whatever. Mostly the high density stringers or wood stringers with EPS. And those aren't the sandwich constructions that we do as what shows up in shops. But when we refine them, we have that in mind, and the design is with that in mind as well. I think so. From a performance standpoint, whoa, hey Rosie, I got a dog visiting. Hi, Rosie.
It's like an
Neighbor dog.
earthquake happening.
I know. I was like, whoa, what's this? But yeah, so the R&D boards are never far removed from consideration of what they will become when they become a stock board. But at the same time, it's not a heavy process. We're just like trying to make the shape right and get the overall feel and then refine it for them at the manufacturing levels, not separately, but sort of separately. So, but the thing that Firewire, I guess it's pretty controversial and guys, you know, there's a lot of people that say, you know, oh, it's made overseas or whatever, but man, a lot of brands are made overseas. A lot of products are made overseas. And so, I'll just let that be a controversial, I don't need to defend it or add to that. But what I will say and defend forever is that it's a really sophisticated process, what we do to make a Firewire. And what goes on is there's 3 CNC steps. So the board comes on and off the CNC in 3 different steps. And there's a vacuum bag. There's 2 vacuum bag stages after each CNC. So there's a CNC step, vacuum bag, CNC, vacuum bag, CNC. So there's and then there's hand touch at the end, and then they're still laminated in a more or less traditional way by hand. So what that enabled, all those added steps enable you to do is add like the wooden rails for like a Dominator 2 has a Polonia rail, wooden rail. On the Slater design side, the DRK will have, or an FRK, whatever, will have a high density foam on the rail instead of the wood. And so that when you slot that material in, as I learned years and years ago with putting the carbon rod in, those different densities in different parts of the board add structure where you need the structure and take away. So instead of having a one homogeneous material throughout the whole entire board with fiberglass wrapped around it like a PU, you can take pieces in and out and substitute different structures and different material to create different support and durability. I got this little fly that's bugging. That can add strength and durability where you need it and not put it out throughout the whole thing to add weight. So hopefully that's clear in understanding how sophisticated, how much thought's gone into starting with Bert a long time ago, how refined and you can make a board be with strength on the rails, because you drop the board and you jam the nose into the car and whatever. It's like when those little things don't equal a catastrophic failure for your board, then you're stoked, So that's where I think Firewire could do a better job telling the story of genuinely it's a sophisticated process that resulted in a pretty sophisticated board build.
Yeah. And I mean, you're explaining of the timeline of the company, having manufacturing in California and Australia was clear. It was all about.
So yeah, I'll try to remember to get back to the misconceptions, but sure that, competition is a threat to your business no matter what. But name me an industry that isn't wrought with competition and people. I mean, it's a cruel world out there, and in the surf industry, it's ruthless. Like there were people in the company that saw the stab thing, and they're like, "I can't believe how mean people are." I'm all, "What do you mean you can't believe this is the surf? Welcome to surfboards, man. Like this is how it is. Like those guys at Diamond weren't, gonna let me have a free ride or give me any, free. It's like here we
100%.
go. Chris Christensen and those kinds of guys, they're tough, and they, like Chris has gone through it too. I glass boards and become pretty good friends with Chris, and just talking about what we've all been through and how we've gotten to be able to make a living out of this industry. You got to have a thick skin and you got to be tough and persevere. So as far as Firewire being a threat to a backyard shaper, yeah, sure. And tell me Channel Islands isn't a threat to those guys, because Channel Islands will come in and say to a local glass shop, we'll give you 40 a week. But then that means you got to get rid of these 5 backyard guys. The Channel Islands, wouldn't, the glass, what's the glass? It's not Channel Islands' fault. It's what's the glass? It's not